Britain's politics is fractured. We have more parties than ever that have a chance of getting some seats at an election, and the chances of one party getting overall majority with our first past the post system is fairly slim, and if they do manage it, it will be on a reduced vote share of the country. As a result, there are lots of people calling for a change to our system and a move towards proportional representation. PR is fairer, they say. It better reflects the attitudes of the country, they say. It's more democratic, they say. However, PR is a Trojan horse. It seeks to take power away from electorates and give it to politicians and unelected and unaccountable civil servants. If you think I'm being scaremongering, watch on and I'll explain. First off, in a PR-based election, the chances of any one party getting an overall majority and being able to rule on their own are slim to negligible. And that has consequences. One of which is that your politicians are going to lie to you more. What am I talking about? I'm talking about their manifestos. In our current system, usually a Labour or a Tory party win, they say in their manifesto what they intend to do, and we can hold them accountable for it. But in the PR system, no one party will win, and therefore they have every excuse in the world to go, sorry, didn't win outright, can't deliver on my manifesto. So they will lie to you more. So if you want to be lied to, then please support PR. The next thing associated with not having a manifesto that you can rely on is that when we have legislation in this country, the House of Lords, the upper chamber, has a tradition where if it's in the winning party's manifesto, they don't oppose it. They might try to improve it or change it when it goes to the readings through the House of Lords, but they won't vote it down because they recognise the supremacy of the democratically elected chamber. But if no party's manifesto is the one that gets chosen, that goes away. That means that the House of Lords will feel no compunction to vote down any legislation it doesn't like, and it's much harder to get things done. And as I said, no one party wins, so to govern you have to find a coalition. Now, we've had coalitions occasionally, most recently with the Tories and the Lib Dems. But the thing about coalitions is nobody voted for them. You show me on the ballot paper where it said Labour Lib Dem Alliance or Tory Reform Alliance. It's not there. So you have a government that nobody voted for. How is that democratic? The next issue is the policy platform. Under the current system, in the manifesto, you know what you're getting. You're not just voting for a party, you're voting for a policy platform. You know that the party that goes into power intends to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, etc. But in a coalition system, the programme of government is negotiated behind closed doors in smoky rooms. You have no idea what you're going to get, and you have no ability to influence it really once it's there. So if you think that that is the purpose of democracy, fine, but I like to know what I'm voting for. A related issue of having lots of smaller parties having a few seats is that they can become the holder of power. If the bigger parties can't quite put together a coalition to get a majority, they then need to look to these smaller parties to get them over the 50% line in terms of number of seats. But do you think that those smaller parties are just going to nod and say thank you and go along with what they want? No, they're going to demand that one of their key policies gets taken up as part of the government's overall policy platform. And do you think it's democratic or fair that a policy which only 5 or 10% of the country voted for ends up in the government's platform? Because I don't. Next, if you're worried about the rise of extreme politics, be it on the left or the right or any particular issue, well then get PR, because you're going to get more of it. Depending on what the threshold is for getting a seat, and in some PRs it's as low as 5%, then that's going to embolden certain people on the extremes of politics to be able to start a party in the hopes of getting a few seats. Depending on the threshold for seats, you'll also get the rise of one-issue parties, whether that's a pro-Gaza party, whether that's a stop oil party. You name the issue, there'll be a party about it in the hope that they can get over the threshold, get some seats, and in some future election hold the balance of power so they can influence government policy way beyond their electoral mandate. Again, not very democratic. The next issue you have is stability. Now, coalition governments can be stable, they can last the full 5 years, particularly if they're two large parties that have a healthy majority and are relatively closely aligned politically. Think perhaps Labour and Lib Dems possibly, or maybe Tories and Reform, although we haven't seen a full programme from either yet. But very often you see that these governments, they don't last very long. 2 years, 18 months, 1 year, 9 months, and then they had to have another election because it keeps breaking down, or another coalition to form with different parties and the government's programme changes. That's just chaos and you don't get much done. A consequence of having this fractured political scene where coalitions keep forming and breaking is that power drifts away from the politicians and into a stable civil service, because that's the only continuing factor. We already have a civil service that has too much power and is totally unaccountable, and it will become stronger and have more power, and it will set aside politicians more and more. Again, very undemocratic. But probably the most important thing you give up if you move to a PR system is the power to fire your government. We've seen it throughout history where the electorate gets fed up with the people in power, they get fed up with what a bad job they're doing, and they get rid of them. We saw it at the last election. Although Labour won with a landslide, it wasn't so much a vote for Labour as it was a vote to kick out the Tories. And if you move to a PR system, you can never fire your government. All that happens is that the chairs shift around, and then you have to cross your fingers and hope that the people you don't like aren't still there afterwards. So if you like the power to reside in the hands of politicians and civil servants, not in your own, by all means support PR. But as flawed as it is, first past the post is the better system. So long.